Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Anthony Glenn checking in with the Sitrep podcast, where we help you win in real estate. And today I have Sierra Taylor, realtor extraordinaire. What's up, Sierra? How you doing?
I am good. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, everyone.
Outstanding. Now I had to drag her out here, y'all. She was this is her first podcast, so let's give her congratulations. Yay!
Yeah, I'm used to doing podcasts in the trenches. I'm not recording.
Indeed. So you're a real estate investor and also a realtor, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you have a Navy background.
I do.
Outstanding. How long were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy 5 years.
And what made you transition out of the Navy?
I kind of got to that point where I felt like the person who I was outside of the uniform was becoming bigger than the person in the uniform. Mm-hmm. Metaphorically, I felt like I was squeezing myself into the uniform instead of just fitting it perfectly.
Indeed. And you have a beautiful daughter?
I do. She's great.
She's going to be a future realtor or what?
I would like to hope she would be a future investor.
Oh, here we go. Hey. No smoke today, y'all. No smoke. Well, today we got a lot to unpack. Today we're talking about the 5 essential things that happen in week 3 in the real estate transaction from the buyer's lens, right? Mm-hmm. So now you guys get to see a face. She is on Clubhouse with us, and she is one of our co-hosts. So say hello. Make sure y'all give her a follow. So let's get straight to the bag. All right. Okay. So unpacking week 3. So this is a very essential week because it's the week before closing, right?
It is.
And the first thing we want to talk about, the first tip that we're going to talk about is the request for repairs. Now, I know in week 2, we do the request for repairs. Mm-hmm. What happens in week 3 in regard to that?
So week 3 is basically when we complete the request for repairs or negotiate, depending on what they're requesting. It's really crunch time in week 3.
That's good, man. And why is it essential? So after you get the request for repairs back, what typically will happen if there is a bunch of stuff on there on the request for repairs? What is the inspector typically looking for?
They're looking for plumbing, electrical, roofing, foundation, major things like that could bother or shake the property in a metaphorically in a financial sense. And to make it basically usable and livable to meet those standards.
Gotcha. So that request for repairs goes out, it comes back, it goes to the seller's agent, they present it to the seller. And then typically the seller, in some markets, they'll do a request. And I know sometimes that the sellers don't want to do things. Usually they'll give a credit, right?
They will, depending on what it is, because if they're on a time crunch, they will, pay to just kind of say, hey, here's the money for you to fix it instead of us doing it because we're on a timeline to move out or whatever the issue is. It just depends. Every situation is very unique.
And then sometimes I also know that, in most cases, the seller and the buyers have to agree. But in some cases, the appraisal, like the FHA appraisal, will pick on termite, right?
Correct.
Usually for the VA loan, correct?
Absolutely. Definitely for the VA loan.
Yeah, the VA typically will pick on chipping paint and things of that nature. But usually when you're doing a purchase, they will send that information in, and then that termite clearance comes back. But you as an agent, you have to be checking to make sure in week 3 that the termite clearance is done. Why is that important for the loan?
Contingency purposes.
That's right. That's good. So that's good. That's a good transition. So talk to us a little bit about contingencies and what they are.
Contingencies are basically timelines for the purchase agreement to make sure that everyone on each side is executing where they should be in a timely manner based off of the purchase agreement. If you've ever seen one, how many days for this, how many, you actually choose the days that you need to complete fulfill each contingency. And everyone in, the agreement signs off on it. So in short, that's what that is about.
So give us 2 examples of what they are. What kind of contingencies are there in there?
I'll go with appraisal because that's a big one, and loan as well. That's a big contingency as well.
Okay, so basically that's like, timelines like first, second, third, and fourth quarter before closing, right?
Absolutely.
Because week 3, that's when you get the key. Oh, that rhyme, y'all. Week 3, you get the keys. Yay! Everybody want to get them keys, boy.
They're ready to just close, so it's really crunch time. Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. So we talked about the request for repairs. The request for repairs comes back. You negotiated everything. That addendum goes to the lender. That has to get back in enough time so they can make changes to the paperwork, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then from the contingencies, now we got the termite inspection. Now, if the termite inspection goes through and there are termites, what typically happens then?
That is something that would have to get cleared. It's not something that could be overlooked. I mean, it can be negotiated when going back and forth between the agents. Hey, are you guys willing to pay for this? Or, it kind of goes in with the repair request as well. It's something that can be negotiated.
Indeed. It can be negotiated because the seller or buyer can pay for termite. It depends on what market it is, right? But it is a requirement for VA loans in order for it to get done. So you definitely want to make sure that they request the termite inspection and get that inspection done. I'm telling y'all, listen, some agents do not like doing the termite clearance until they want to know that loan is good. So that goes back to Sierra's point about the contingency period, because you do your inspections typically the first week, second week you do your request for repairs, third week now you're transitioning into closing. So that's good. So now we've discussed the termite. Okay, what happens if for the request for repairs?
So there are 3 different things that can happen for the RR. I'm just gonna shorten it up. Either 1, they can invoice the escrow. 2, they can do it themselves and show the receipts, especially for the audit. Or 3, credit the buyer when it comes to their closing costs.
Well, that's good. And crediting buyers is typically what people do for the sake of time. So usually that money can't go direct. A lot of people want the money to come to them, but you're not going to get a big check for repairs at close of escrow and go to Las Vegas and turn up, okay? All right? Typically, there's a credit, and then that credit goes to reoccurring and non-recurring closing costs. So the cool thing about the VA, though, is that, if there's some debt that needs to be paid off and there's extra money left over, then they can use that towards debt buy down, right?
Yep.
As long as concessions is in that offer. Now that we talked about the disclosures, now we're transitioning into the final countdown, the final audit, right? So typically, what happens in that final audit? Because I know that everything has to be cleared now for the transition of the house from the seller to the buyer. Can you give us some examples of that final audit?
Number 1, HOA transfer. That is something that the seller has to do on their side, seeing that they are the owner, as well as the home warranty. 2 big ones.
That's good because the home warranty usually covers, whatever the seller and the buyer agreed to, and typically that has to be ordered. They want to see that that's ordered before. Another thing is solar panels and water softeners.
Oh, yeah.
Why are those important?
Because a lot of times those type of systems carry loans attached to them. And so typically you want to either make sure the loans are either paid off or at least capable of being transferred.
That's good. And I'm glad she said that because look at me, y'all. Solar panels are not always created equal. And typically the seller has not given the information and all of the disclosures in that week. So that's why it's important for you guys to do your due diligence, because sometimes the solar lease has to get transferred. So that solar lease has to go from the sellers to the buyers, and typically that requires another qualification because solar panels will not go secondary to the loan. And what that means is that if a loan is in place and then the solar panels come afterwards, right? The loan was first and you put solar on your house and there's a lien on there. When those solars get transferred, that person either has to pay off that solar panels or the new buyer needs to assume the lease, which requires another credit check. So be careful with. I'm glad you said solar, because that's a really, 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 really crucial one, and that typically will hold things up. This was good, man. This was a really good podcast. Thank you for coming on. All right,
Thank you for having me.
You did very, very good. And how can we reach you?
You can reach me at meetsierra.com or on IG Sierra I Taylor.
And check us out on wire10k.com, where we help you win in real estate on Clubhouse. And then you can reach me at Tony Glenn II on Instagram and TokTik. No, I'm joking, y'all. TikTok, y'all. But this has been a magnificent podcast. Stay tuned for week 4, where we get the keys, y'all. Yeah, make sure you stay tuned for next week's podcast, because we're going to be discussing the final countdown, where we do everything in week 4. Thank you for coming. Sierra, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And Tony Glenn and Sierra Taylor, Remax Liberty, out. Peace.